In today's show, we're going to talk about how to get you going with Office 365 and PowerShell. We're going to look at how you install it, how you get connected to it, and then just talk about some of the bits and pieces you need to know so you can start becoming effective with it. Should be fast, should be fun. But first, our intro. If that jam doesn't get you ready to learn, I don't know what will. My name's Shane Young, and I'm with Bold Zebras, those guys. And in today's show, we're going to dive into PowerShell for Office 365. So, there are guides out there on how to get started. I just want to kind of create this video to walk you through it. It's been a long time coming, quite frankly, because it annoys me. There's a lot of little pieces you got to figure out to get this going. So I thought I'd just make a video and do it with you. All right? Well, that's enough of the talking. Let's just jump right in. So here I'm on my Windows 10 VM. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to open up my browser. And I use Internet Explorer because it does the best at resizing and make it easy for you guys to read. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to PowerShell.office.com/getstarted. And hopefully I just zoomed in on that. It was kind of a cool little animation. But if not, there is a link down in the description as well. So don't feel like you got to figure out what I really typed there if you're having a hard time seeing it. Anyway, so what this site does is it gives you all the pieces you need to do. There's about 4 different things we're going to install. And then it also is going to talk about all the scripts that we need to do to get connected. And, so I'm just going to kind of walk you through it and help you piece it all together. All right. So the first thing to consider, though, is in order to do most of what we're going to do, if not all of it, is you need to be an Office 365 administrator. Now, there are some of the pieces like the SharePoint Online stuff where you could have like just SharePoint Online administrator access and be able to do those pieces. But generally speaking, I'm going to assume that you're an Office 365 administrator to make this go easier. Also, when we first get into PowerShell, we're going to talk about the execution policy because to run some of these commandlets, you do have to have remote scripts enabled. So we'll set that, but we'll get to that when we get to the PowerShell portion. All right, so if we scroll down here, there are 4 modules that we need to get. And so those 4 modules, they've given us like nice little links here. So we're just going to download each one. So we'll hit download on the first one. And we'll just talk about what they are as we go and how to choose which pieces you might need. All right, so the page loaded. So we're going to scroll down here and we're going to hit download for the sign-on assistant. And then we get prompted, do we want 32-bit or 64-bit? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you just want the 64-bit. So we're going to say 64-bit, next. Oh, scary Microsoft, what do you want to do? We're going to actually always allow pop-ups for this site. It's just easier for the video's sake. All right, so now we're prompted, so I'm going to hit save. And now that that's done, we'll hit run. And so what the sign-on assistant is, right, is it's just some bits and pieces that provide a good experience for you getting authenticated. Because remember with Office 365, you might have a personal account, you might have a work account, you might have a school account. And so because of that, they have to kind of have some smarts in it. When you type in your password or your username, it figures out where it needs to go to authenticate you. So we're going to accept this. Accept and hit install. Yes to my user access control. And if you're wondering about the whole 32-bit versus 64-bit thing, most of the 32-bit stuff has been deprecated at this point, so it's still out there, but they're not investing new efforts into that. So generally speaking, unless you have a specific reason to install the 32-bit, you'll want to stay away from that. All right, so it looks like that's done, so we'll hit finish, and we can close this window. Step 1 is done. Step 2, we're going to download the Azure Active Directory module. So we'll click on that. We'll scroll down here to the install section and click on it. You'll notice if you read all the fine print here, it would actually tell you the 32-bit stuff's been deprecated. I will point out though that for me here, you get both the preview bits and the GA bits. I generally just do the GA bits, right? I don't want to be beta testing this stuff, especially if you're in the learning phase. It's better to run the GA, right? GA for general availability. And so we're going to hit download for that. We'll do the same thing. Save again. And the reason I save all these is maybe you want to give them to your buddy later, so they're all saved in my downloads folder. I'm like, here, take all this, install it. Or it's just because it's what I do. I don't know. Anyway, hit run. We'll say next. I accept. Next. Do not create a shortcut on my desktop. Next. And install. There's our user access control again. So yes for that. And just like that, we're finished. Now, I will point out that I find like this one's kind of misleading. Azure Active Directory connection. You're like, but I'm not doing Azure AD. What do I need that for? Well, A, if you're doing Office 365, in the background, you do have Azure AD components. But B, I would have named this something different because this includes all your commandlets for not only editing your users, but also licensing, in general, managing your whole subscription stuff. So I would have called this like the Office 365 PowerShell connector, but they didn't ask for my opinion. So what do you do? All right, so we'll close out of that. And so next here, we need to download the SharePoint Online module. If you're watching my stuff, you're probably a SharePoint person anyway. So you're like, hey, this is what I came for. Well, good news, here it is. You can also check out the Surface Studio. You can buy me one of those to say thank you for making this video. It'd be nice. All right, so we'll hit download for this guy. Same deal again. I'm only going to install the 64-bit, so we'll check that box. And next. All right, looks like that's done. So we'll hit run. All right, we'll accept the terms. You guys are going to read all those, right? I'm sure you did. Thank you. Hit install. Another user access control pop up. Wonder how many of you have actually disabled those because you got sick of them. Not judging, just asking. And we'll hit finish. The other thing that should be obvious here, if you haven't caught on, is that you do need to be a local administrator of your PC to install all this stuff. So if you're not, then you keep getting those user access control boxes, and you're going to need to have the IT guy standing by to type those in for you a lot. So hopefully you're just a local admin, but I did mean to cover that earlier. So we'll close this one. One more thing to install, and that is the Skype for Business stuff. Hasn't been renamed in like 6 months, so it's pretty cool. So we'll hit download for that one. Oh, Office 365 ad, which is weird since we already have Office 365. That's why we're installing this, but we won't judge. We'll hit download for that one, and we will say save. I almost clicked run. Then I would have made fun of myself. There we go. Now we'll hit run. More licensing terms for you guys to read. Seen some scary stuff about not reading licensing terms. Cartoon comes to mind. Click install. This is a family show, so we're not going to talk about that cartoon. So then we'll say yes to user access control. All right, and so then that finished up, so we'll hit close there. All right, so that gets all of our installing done. Yay, installing. So then the next piece is we need to get connected. And so to get connected, they've also got a nice little page here, so we hit connect. And so when this opens, it's going to show us all the different PowerShell we're going to need. We'll scroll down a little bit, do a little zooming in here as well, make it as big as I can. And so, and also there'll be, you've got the link down there so you can get to this web page yourself. So you're not really trying to type this stuff in with me, right? You should be cutting and pasting along if you want. But what they've done here is they've given us all of the different little snippets, because each one of those sets of commandlets we just installed has a different way for us to connect to that service online. So depending on what piece you need on a given day, you're going to need to connect to that piece, right? You wouldn't always just come in, start your day by connecting to all 4 or 5 of those. 4. What you would do is you would actually say, okay, today, I need to solve the SharePoint problem, so I'm just going to do the SharePoint connection pieces and kind of work through it that way. So that's why it's kind of important we break down what these all do. And before we can connect to anything, we're going to need to open up PowerShell. So I'm going to hit start, and I'm going to type in power, and I'm going to right click on my Windows PowerShell and run as administrator. There's my user access control, so we'll say yes. Now, for a lot of people, they just go ahead and set their PowerShell to always run as administrator, because quite frankly, there's almost nothing you ever do with PowerShell that you're not going to need to be administrator for. You can also see here that I went ahead and resized all my fonts and screen sizes to make it a little easier for you guys to follow along. But like we said, you're just going to cut and paste from over there, so it doesn't really matter. But either way, I was thinking of you. That's what I want the credit for. I thought about you. So there's that. So the first thing I want you to type in, this is not in the instructions, but I want you to type in start transcript. Right? We can use tab complete to finish that and hit enter. If you're not familiar with start transcript, what that's going to do is it's going to write everything that we do in this session, everything gets shown back on the screen to that text file right there. So this has 2 purposes. One is it gives you a way to figure out what you did after the fact if something goes wrong. Like, you're like, I don't know why all of our tenants are not here anymore. We'll go look at the transcript. Oh yeah, I deleted all the tenants in the transcript. At least you can solve the problem and you have a running log of everything you've done in the environment. The other thing is you're probably in a learning state, right? You need to go figure out how to do this and how to do that. I'm still in a learning state, 5 or 6 years into my PowerShell career. And so like just yesterday, I was solving all these problems in PowerShell. The problem with it is I got to the end, I got finished. And if I just close the PowerShell window, they're gone, right? That big old script that I spent 4 hours writing is gone forever. If I'm using start transcript, it's not gone forever. It's in the transcript. So I really recommend you always just use start transcript. Every time you start a PowerShell window, start a transcript. Okay, so the next thing you need to look at is you need to do a get-execution policy, right? Tab complete again is your friend. And you can see that mine is currently set to remote signed. And so that is the permission level that yours should probably at. If you're at a higher level, right, where it's restricted, disallowed, all those different things, I forget what the exact one's called, you need to set it. And so to set it, you would do set execution policy, and then just type in remote sign, right? All tab completed for me. Because in order for all these scripts to run, you have to have that. Now, maybe you've turned it off completely, but we're not going to get into that. That'd be scary, so don't do that. So run set execution policy remote signed. When you do that, you'll be prompted to say, hey, did you really mean to make your security lower than restricted? You did, so hit yes. And just remember, it's got to be safe because you learned about it on the internet, and everything on the internet is true. So, okay, so those are our two things. Start a transcript, get our execution policy. Got it? Let's dive in and look at Cmdlets. We'll do CLS first to clear our screen. And now we're going to kind of do the whole switch back and forth with the browser. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to do a set of variable where you're going to put your credentials in. Right? I right click with PowerShell and PowerShell to do the paste. And so $credential equals get credential, and hit enter, and it's going to prompt me for my username and password. So I'm going to grab that over here. I'm also going to blank it out so you people aren't stealing my account. I know how you are. Now, as you do this, it's important to know that it's not validating anything at this point. It literally just took whatever I typed in, whatever username, whatever password I typed in, and put them into that variable. So we don't know if I typed in the right thing or not, if I'm going to have any errors until we use it. All right, so now that we've done that, now we're going to import the module. So import module MSOnline, right? This is the one that has all of the commandlets for dealing with and interacting with your subscriptions. So managing your users, managing your licenses, all that high-end management stuff. And so we import our module. And then once we import our module, and that's what made the PowerShell Commands available in the session, now we're going to run this line, Connect-MsolService -credential, and then our $credential. So we're going to use that username and password we put in that first time. We're going to cross our fingers that it works, and we didn't get any error messages, so now we're logged in. And so to check that we are actually in and everything's good, what I might do is do get MSOL, that's so hard to say, MSOL user. So I do a little tab complete there and hit enter. And so there's all the losers. No, they're not losers. Well, maybe, but different story. All the users in my subscription. So that tells me we got connected, we're in, we're good. And so now you guys could dive in and start learning about all the different fun PowerShell commandlets you might want to do. If you want to see all the commandlets you had available, you do get command, right? Tab complete, -module, and then MSO, hit tab there, and it'll populate that with MSOnline. And so then there's all of the commandlets that we got from that module. And because I like to show off my nerdy skills, you can put those in some parentheses. Got to find the home row key, Shane, if you'd like to type $.count. And so you can see there's 96 PowerShell commandlets available. And it's all those high level users, licenses, and then kind of domain or Office 365 subscription wide settings. So there you go. That's enough to get you started at that particular level. So let's look at the next piece we can dive into. So we'll switch back over here. And now what we want us to do is we're going to import the module LyncOnlineConnector. Right, just a second ago, they called it Skype. What is this? They like to keep us guessing. Oh, before we do that, though, we'll clear the screen. All right, we'll paste that in. And it says, hey, that WinRM service is not running. In order for this to work, you need it to run. Okay. So I did a little yes there. All right, so now that module has been done. And so then now what we're going to do is we're going to create a session. So for the Lync stuff and for the Exchange stuff, you don't actually run the PowerShell here locally. It's actually creating a remote session to your Lync server out there in the magical cloud. So you have to keep that in mind. There's two reasons for that. One is because you have this weird connection process. But two, you can only have 3 of these connections per subscription. So if you want to make sure you always shut them down, right? With like the SharePoint Online stuff, you can just close PowerShell and life is great. With this one, we're actually going to need to remove the session when we get done with it. So there's my $link session. And so then here's the line where we import that session. So control copy, paste that in. And so there you can see it's sucking all the stuff across the wire. And so then it pulls in this weird name. And you'll notice that every single time you import the session, you're going to get a different module name. Don't overthink it. And speaking of not overthinking it, right? So when we downloaded it, it was called Skype for Business. We set up a link session, but now all of our commandlets are CS for good old communication server. So, Link's got some baggage here. Don't overthink it. But now that we are connected, what I'd probably do is put the cursor over here so you could see what I was doing. Do get CS online. Online user. And so this would scroll for a week and a half. So I'll hit Control C there. But that's going to show you that, yes, you're connected to your link session. There's all your users. Same type of deal. If you wanted to see all the commandlets available, what I would do is I would do get module here. So there's all the modules. And then there's that weirdo name of the modules we just imported. So what we're going to do is do a get command dash module, type in TMP, hit tab. And so then there's all of the PowerShell module or all the PowerShell commandlets available to do your Skype for Business or Link or communication server or Office communication server, whatever name you'd like to call it. There's commandlets for it. You could do the same thing, run the count command again. I forget how many there are. There's a few. But remember, when you're done with this, the one thing that I need you to do, because you want to free up the resources so they're there either for you or for the next guy, whichever may be, is I need you to do a remove PS session, and then you would do the link session. So then that shuts down that connection. Now I can't run any of that PowerShell commandlets, right? If I do the get command or get CS online user, it's like, what do you mean? I don't know what that is, because all that stuff's been removed. So got us into link, got us out, got it, or Skype, whatever. Call it whatever you want. All right. So that covers Skype. Now let's talk about the SharePoint stuff. So we'll grab this guy. And so step one will be to import the module for that. Well, step one really will be to clear the screen. We're going to import the module for that. You do get this message, right? Some of the commands use inappropriate verbs. I don't know. It's Microsoft. Why they didn't just use the right verbs, I don't know. If you don't like error messages like that, I know that it freaks out some people, especially when I share my scripts with people. If you do -disable name checking, then when you import the module, no errors. There you go. There's a tip. Yay me. All right, so then now that that's done, you'll need to connect to the SPOService. With this one, you're going to need to use your own PowerShell, right? Because you need to replace Contoso with your Office 365 domain. So over here, I've already grabbed mine. So Connect-SPOService URL, there's my URL, and then credentials is the credentials we used a minute ago. So we hit enter, we cross our fingers. Boom, everything came out. So life is grand. So now we're connected. And then, just do something like get SPO site. And so there's a list of all the site collections in my tenant so that I know I'm in there. Now with the SharePoint PowerShell stuff, it's worth mentioning that the PowerShell foo that is here is about 56 commandlets. It's pretty weak, especially if you've ever done anything with SharePoint on-prem PowerShell for SharePoint. You're like, hey, there's a lot I can do there. Most of that stuff will not work here. So to do that, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to install the patterns and practices PowerShell commandlets. So it's available for Microsoft. I'll put a link down below. But the good news is I'll also put a link to, I'm going to do a video tomorrow. So, probably after you've already seen the video. But I'm going to do a video tomorrow on how to install those commandlets because they're also slightly different. But they are infinitely better than the PowerShell commandlets that Microsoft gives us through the process we just walked through. So have these, look at these. They can do some core stuff, creating new site collections, that type of stuff. But they're not going to do a lot of the fancy stuff that you want to do, like edit list items or create lists or that type of stuff. And so with the patterns and practices stuff, I'll create some videos that show you how to do that. But anyway, this gets you the core stuff that you thought you were looking for. Now you want more. Watch a different video. All right. So that gets the SharePoint stuff done. Last piece, we're almost done, folks, is we need to connect to Exchange. So Exchange is another one that is a lot like Lync, in that we're going to actually run a remote session from the server in the magical cloud. So we'll clear our screen off here, and we're going to run just the PowerShell that they just gave us. That URL is the same for all of us, so you don't have to worry about updating your URL or adding any of your bits to that, right? And it's just using our credentials that we set earlier to get that set up. So once you've done that, now we've created the session. And then now we need to import the session. And so there you go, it's pulling all the stuff across the old internet again. All right, same type of deal. You got the whole, some of the commandlets aren't perfect. You'll also notice that once again, the module it pulled in is a weirdo temp underscore name that they used, the same as the last guy. So same type of deal. If you wanted to see what commandlets you now have available, you do dash command, module, TMP, and then tab. Make sure they match, right? Because if you hadn't gotten rid of the Lync session, then there would be a Lync one that has that same TMP start. But I do not, so we're good there. And there you go, all your mailbox management. I'll give the Exchange guys this. There are a lot of commandlets there. There's a lot of power around creating your mailboxes and such. But generally speaking, to do any of that, your script would need two pieces, right? You'll need the MSOL scripts to create a user, license a user, and then come in here and create a mailbox for them, right? That'd be kind of an automation process. So that's why we talk about all the different modules you need, because you have to kind of mix and match them along the way to do, actually solve real world problems. So there we go. We can see my Exchange stuff is working. And so the last thing I'll remind you, and we could do like a get mailbox, I guess, just to prove that I'm really in there. So there's all the people with mailboxes in my domain. So the last thing I just want to remind you guys about is that you will need to get rid of that session. So to get rid of the session, what we're going to do, once again, is we're going to do remove PS session, and then you just need to use the same variable that you used to create the session. And the reason I point that out, I realize that sounds like Captain Obvious stuff, but most of the scripts you see on the internet to remove session always just say remove PS session, $session, but you don't have a $session because using the scripts that you just got from Microsoft there, you did remove PS, or you created it as Exchange session, easy for me to say, session, so you need to remove that session. All right, so I think that covers everything I wanted to cover. Right now, you know how to get in and manage all the different components of Office 365. You've got them installed, and you know how to kind of touch them. In future videos, I'll start solving some real-world problems. Like I said, the next video will be installing the patterns and practices, the SharePoint stuff, and get you some scripts for that. And then from there, I'll be able to point back to this series and say, hey, if you have troubles getting installed, there you go. All right, so I thank you for watching today. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you need any help, you can always ask down in the comments. You can hit me on Twitter @ShanesCows, or if you need some consulting with this, which it turns out lots of people need help automating this stuff. That's one of the things I do with these guys over here at Bold Zebras. So hit me up and we can make fun videos together. All right, thanks. Have a great day.